than just its size. We're continuing the vision of Dr. Jerry Falwell, the founder, to train champions for Christ. And they are in every area of life. Many of them are right here in Washington, D.C., working in the nation's capitals and the various agencies with various legislators, which is a caucus of around 80 or so Christian members of the House that get together and they pray on a regular basis here in the nation's capital. So we're proud to be able to have one of our graduates that works with them, and her sole job in life is to be able to intersect these individuals with church leaders, other leaders around the country, to promote and to draft and work with religious liberty legislation. And so that's just one of the many success stories that we have. We're getting ready now to open up, in addition to, in the last couple of years, opening a law school, an aviation school. We're getting ready to open up a School of Health Sciences, and that School of Health Sciences will also have a medical school, and that will be, I believe, our 12th college at Liberty University. We have a lot of material that's on your table, so make take that in your bag. We have a Liberty University bag, and also on the table outside, we have a free Liberty University cup, so make sure you can take one of those, and then drop by and visit the Liberty University booth here. We have paralegal studies online that the law school has recently created this summer. We have all kinds of things that is available for all different kinds of interests. Over 140 undergraduate and graduate degrees, all the way from an Associate of Arts degree through a doctorate degree in various different areas as well. I'm the Dean of the Law School. We opened in 2004, graduated our first class in 2007. Last weekend we won the National Entertainment Negotiations Competition. The success rate that God has blessed us with so quickly, we were invited there as an invitation because we were one of the top teams in the country last year. So our first time there, we won the national championship. We went back again and we repeated as national champions in this area. And whether it's moot court, we've just placed second in the nation with the best oral advocate and fourth in the nation with the best brief. You can go on and on about how so many of those programs and many other law schools in the country. And so we're just excited to see what God is going to be doing. As each year we train and graduate champions for Christ. And every May, the sales on Tums or Pepsi go up because the ACLU always has to take those, knowing that a new crop of Christian attorneys are going to be graduating and having their bar exam, and you're going to have to tackle with them in your future. So make yourself available by the booths. We'll be happy to give you all kinds of information. Liberty Counsel is also a co-sponsor of the breakfast, and you have some flyers and tent flyers on your table there. On the back of one of those, Liberty Counsel one, is our Awakening 2012 in Orlando, in the swing state, and on the swing section of Orlando, right there in Orlando on the I-4 corridor, and that'll be April 19 through 21. So you might want to mark that time down. It'll be a great opportunity called The Awakening. We're also having a major outreach that begins it, kicks it off for the Hispanic pastors and leaders in Orlando, Florida. So take that with you and make sure you mark down those dates. But Liberty Counsel is an international religious liberty organization focusing on advancing religious liberty, life, and family through litigation, education, and public policy. We have offices in Florida, Virginia, here in Washington, D.C. We're opening an office in Jerusalem, Israel. We've been there 3 times this year on various matters that we're developing in Israel. And Liberty Counsel, I won't go all the things that we're doing, but yesterday we put the finishing touches on, and either today or tomorrow we will file a petition with the United States Supreme Court on the Obamacare case, in which Liberty University and 2 other individuals are represented by Liberty Counsel. So I believe that there's 3 cases that are pending there now. There's one from the 6th Circuit, the Thomas More case, there is the Florida case, and then there's our case. The Supreme Court will, in my opinion, no question, take one or several of those cases. And we'll have arguments sometime in the early part of 2012 with a decision no later than the end of June 2012 when the Supreme Court ends its term on Obamacare. And hopefully we'll be able to celebrate at that time, and Obamacare will be just simply a bad page in history. So feel free to go by our booth at Liberty Counsel and find out a little bit more about what we do. We also have Liberty Counsel Action, which is our C4 issue advocacy organization. So we're pleased, Liberty University and Liberty Counsel, to be co-sponsors of this event and to sponsor this breakfast. I want to introduce our guest. It's a friend of mine. His name is Tony Calatayud. And if you don't know how to pronounce it all the time, he always says, just say, call it Tony C. And what's the other one, Tony? The Pina Colada. Yeah, there you go. This is his bio, and as you can see, he has put a lot of miles on it. He just brought this out of his briefcase. But he is traveling so much to work for God's kingdom and to advance the cause, particularly within the Hispanic community. And I am just really pleased that you've been able to take some time out of your schedule to be here. He's been a successful entrepreneur and a community leader in a lot of different areas for over 25 years in South Florida. He's the national director for Salem Espanol, the 7-station Spanish language division of publicly traded Salem Communications. He was given charge of creating the division from its genesis in 2007, and what's been keeping him on the road recently.
A Democratic-leaning group. There's 50 million Hispanics now in the country. We expect half this country in 2050 to be Hispanic. That group is 80% conservative in nature. 80% conservative in nature. But we've had really horrific messaging. First of all, the left has done a great job of faking everybody in the Hispanic community out.
You know, one of the things that I am concerned about as we move into the 2012 presidential election is we're certainly looking at a new president. Certainly we need hope and change. We should hope for real hope and change. But at the same time, 2012 can be very critical in terms of where the Hispanic goes, the population goes in terms of a voting bloc. 2012 and 2016. And if we don't understand the values and message, we might as well forget about elections, because it is possible, highly possible, that they could be moved into a liberal political machine that's actually contrary to their core values.
Absolutely. And when I say, I mean, you talk about family, life issues, they don't want big government either. They're usually leaving big governments that are trying to oppose them. You know, I believe seriously that the next 10 years, from now to 2020, will determine the next 50 years in this country. Will determine what happens with your great-grandchildren. And that is going to, and the key to all that is properly messaging to the Hispanic population, which absolutely should be under the conservative tent. Now, the word Republican doesn't sound too good. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. And that's been years of idiotic rhetoric by some people. Not everybody, but some people, that where it's coming from D.C. and the Beltway, where there's anger and bitterness seemingly against the group that's coming in or is well established in this country. And the immigration issue is the key part of that. But at the end of the day, this is a group that should be naturally voting conservative on a constant basis. But what's happening is we're not messaging properly. And I think what we've got to message, instead of that political rhetoric, is values. It's values. It's the same values that we all have. You know, and they are looking right now. I see a vast millions of Hispanics right in the middle. Some have been deceived by the left. Okay, and they're there. Some, especially in the Cuban community in South Florida, who's been there for 50 years, like my father, who had to leave the Castro government, you know, running on a boat so he wouldn't be assassinated, have been conservative in nature pretty much along the way. In Miami, it's not a problem. Okay, I've been in a little bubble in Miami because we're pretty conservative there. Okay, but Hispanics are conservative in nature regardless.
They're going to be more pro-life and strong pro-family and strong pro-social conservative issues. Correct?
Absolutely.
And there is a perception, however, that the Hispanic community is pro-big government, pro-government benefits, thus pro-democratic. Address that.
Look, I don't know of, and I'm from Cuba. I'm born in Miami Beach, Cuban background. I don't know many people, and I go across the country. I've been from Seattle to Omaha and everywhere in between. What I see is people that want to work, have a job, be able to bless their family, and go forward. I mean, and here's the word, and everybody I think in this room will understand what I'm saying. It's a word that's sometimes used a lot in the church, and not a lot outside the church. But I'll tell you what the conservative leaders, you guys and others in this country, has to do with the Hispanic population, and we have to do.
Hispanic population is more consistent, say, if we're talking about party platforms, with the Republican Party platform as opposed to the Democratic Party platform, more pro-family, more pro-values, then why is it that they have, in 2008, voted more Democratic? But also, of course, in 2004, George W. Bush made significant inroads into the Hispanic community. I think there is that perception. Why is it, what is the message that the Hispanic community is hearing? Even though they may be more closely aligned to our values, sometimes a number of them vote contrary to those values.
Well, here's some headlines that if you just Google it, look, you hear these kind of things.
Because every place that I've spoken to, every Hispanic organization, group of people that we've spoken to, Sam Rodriguez, who's president of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference, has 34,500 evangelical Hispanic churches. Clearly, by the way, in their criteria that they've released, life is number one, marriage is number two. And really, there's only three possible alternatives. One, you deport everybody. Two, you give them all amnesty. Or three, you deport the people who are felons, committed violent crimes. Obviously, they've already committed some crime. Take them out of the jails and deport those individuals. Second, after that, in the queue. Now, I think that's the only reasonable way to do it. When I was testifying in your presentation, sounded interested in the issue of immigration. We were testifying about how to deal with the immigration issue. They sounded interested, except when I speak. Usually it's the opposite. But I said, if I had just been dropped into that meeting, not knowing anything about parties or platforms or political processes, and if somebody asked me, which side do you want to associate with? I would say, no question, that side over here, because that side looks mean. They weren't interested. They had some off-the-wall comments. We used the short-circuit amnesty for anybody who doesn't want a mass deport. And frankly, you can't mass deport. You'd have Elian Gonzalez's on the news every day. We wouldn't be able to do that, and it's not practical to do it anyway.
And you know that. I mean, I'm telling you, anybody should have been married. Anybody. I mean, I was stunned to see that. Even more stunned about a month before, there still really is a race going on, and it's anybody's race, certainly. Hispanics do not go to the polls. And in fact, had ads on TV pushing that for Hispanics not to go to the polls. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. If you actually outreach to them, if you actually message to them, if you actually come and want to create a pact with them, if you share with them in love and wisdom, we want you to join us, you don't have to do that. And chances are, Sharon Angle, who's not a great candidate anyway, would have beaten Harry Reid. But instead, she was pushing back, and what happened? The Hispanics saw that and went to the polls. In anger. We should do it in love, in covenant. We want to work with you. You know, we want to join you. So that's just one example of what happens. And when you're in, I'll tell you one of the ways that we're looking to change it.
Money is that to hire somebody legally in the United States that earns minimum wage costs an employer $17 to $18 an hour with medical, workers' compensation, insurance, etc. The people that hire illegal aliens, often for less than $10 an hour, they don't pay any of that. These are lawbreakers. They're taking advantage of Hispanic and Asian workers. They don't want legal workers. They won't pay legal workers. They don't want to pay the $18 or $20 an hour. My fear is that once we legalize the 5 million Asians that are in this country and the 12 million Hispanics that are in this country, and these people that don't pay, they're not going to pay $20 an hour to hire these people. They're going to import more people. They're not going to want to hire legal Hispanics. They're not going to want to hire legal Asians Because they're lawbreakers. Not the people that are working, the people that are hiring them are the true lawbreakers. And they're not going to go honest just because those folks are legalized. They're just not. They're going to continue to break the law, and they're going to continue to bring illegals in order to do those jobs. How do you handle that?
How do they feel about English as a first language and Spanish or a bilingual nation? And secondly, how do we overcome the free stuff? President Obama is huge at incentivizing, and how do we overcome the free stuff that the Democratic Party gives out?
Can you?
What effect do you think it would have on the presidential race, independent of who the nominee becomes? If, against his stated wishes, Marco Rubio is the vice presidential on this. I think he's an awesome elected office holder. He speaks so well. He speaks to everybody, regardless of who they are or where they came from. He's one of the most incredible people like that in the country, I think. What do you think about that?
Well, President, I'm glad you brought that up.
It's in part of the congressional record. You can email liberty@lc.org, liberty@lc.org, and I'll send it to you. But amnesty is complete forgiveness. Amnesty is what we did to the Vietnam draft dodgers. They broke the law. We said, it's okay, no fine, no penalty, no jail time. Come on in, you're all welcome. That's amnesty. Amnesty is closer to what Ronald Reagan did in 1986. Amnesty is not having to pay some kind of penalty for breaking a law. And we have different kinds of things that we do. There's not always a one-size-fits-all penalty for breaking the law. We have different gradations of crime, $500 fine, $1,000 fine, 6 months in jail, whatever it is. So we don't have a one-size-fits-all. What essentially we've done is we've said that the speed limit is 65. We've done that for 10 years, 15 years. And then we've had cameras on the road, and we said, even though you're driving 85 miles per hour, we're not going to enforce the law. And then 10 years later, we pull up the video cameras and we say, all those people that have been driving 85 miles an hour, now we're going to enforce the law, we're going to give you a ticket. Well, that's essentially what we've done.